there is a very good chance you have walked past one of the most valuable fruit crops on the continent without even glancing at it. You have likely seen it in the landscaping of a McDonald's drive-thru, bordering the parking lot of your local bank, or planted in the median of a suburban highway. It is planted by the millions from Ohio to Oregon, prized by city planners for its delicate white spring flowers and its fiery red autumn leaves. But if you look closer in early June, you will see something that most people miss. Those ornamental branches are often weighing down, dripping with fruit that looks like a blueberry. This is the Juneberry. You might know it as the serviceberry, the shadbush, or in the northern plains, the Saskatoon. It is a native North American powerhouse that sustained indigenous civilizations for thousands of years and fueled the fur trade that built the modern frontier. Yet, it has been relegated to the status of municipal landscaping. This is a story of a fruit that was too wild, too complex, and too fragile for the industrial supply chain to tame. Welcome to Ancestral Yields. If you want to reclaim the food growing in your own backyard, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Let's dig in. We have been trained by marketing campaigns to view the blueberry as the undisputed king of antioxidants. But when you put Amelanchier alnifolia, the Juneberry, head-to-head with Vaccinium corymbosum, the commercial blueberry, in a lab, the difference is quite surprising. Commercial blueberries are approximately 85% to 90% water. Juneberries are denser, with a lower moisture content that concentrates their nutrients. Let us break down the minerals, using a standard serving size of 100 grams, or about 3.5 ounces. We cannot talk about purple fruit without addressing the big buzzword, antioxidants. This is the main reason you buy blueberries. You want those inflammation-fighting compounds. Here is the reality. Standard cultivated blueberries typically contain about 160 to 200 milligrams of anthocyanins per 3.5 ounce serving. Juneberries clock in significantly higher, with some studies showing wild varieties matching or exceeding the potent wild blueberry at over 500 milligrams of total phenolics. Next, let us talk about iron. A 3.5 ounce serving of cultivated blueberries contains roughly 0.3 to 0.5 milligrams of iron. That same serving size of Juneberries delivers approximately 1 milligram, and in wild varieties, often higher. Then there is calcium. This is where the gap becomes a canyon. Blueberries offer about 6 milligrams of calcium per 3.5 ounces. Juneberries pack in between 42 and 65 milligrams for the same amount. That is a 7 to 10-fold increase. You would have to eat nearly a quart of blueberries to get the bone-building calcium found in a single handful of Juneberries. We also have to talk about fiber. The modern American diet is chronically fiber deficient. Juneberries contain about 5.9 grams of fiber per 3.5 ounces, compared to the blueberries' 2.4 grams. Why the difference? It comes down to the seeds. When you eat a blueberry, the seeds are imperceptible grit. But Juneberries contain soft, edible seeds that possess an almond-like flavor. These seeds provide a whole food matrix that includes protein and healthy lipids, regulating blood sugar and digestion far more effectively than a juice-heavy fruit. But it is not just about the quantity. It is about the spectrum. Juneberries are significantly higher in phenolic acids and flavonols, specifically a compound called quercetin, which supports heart health and immune function. While blueberries are good, Juneberries provide a broader, denser spectrum of protection in every single berry. Long before they were decorative trees in city parks, Juneberries were the caloric backbone of the northern plains. To the Cree Nation, they were Misasquatamina, the fruit of the tree of many branches. This word was anglicized as Saskatoon, and the city in Saskatchewan is named after the berry, not the other way around. But the most famous application of this fruit was pemmican. To survive the brutal sub-zero winters of the North American interior, indigenous peoples created the ultimate survival food. They took dried bison meat, pounded it into a coarse powder, mixed it with rendered fat, tallow, and studded the mixture with dried Juneberries. The Juneberries were not just there for flavor. They were a functional preservative. The fruit is naturally high in antioxidants and phenolic acids that helped prevent the fat from going rancid. This mixture was calorie-dense, shelf-stable for years, and portable. When European fur traders arrived, they did not introduce better food. They adopted pemmican. It became the fuel of the voyageurs. The Hudson's Bay Company and the westward expansion of the United States ran on pemmican. It is no exaggeration to say that the exploration and mapping of this continent was powered by the energy stored in the Juneberry. In the eastern United States, particularly in Appalachia and New England, the plant carried a different, more somber name, serviceberry. Legend holds that in the isolated communities of early America, the ground froze so hard in winter that graves could not be dug. When the Amelanchier trees burst into white bloom in early spring, it was a signal that the ground had thawed enough to bury the dead. The service tree marked the time for funeral services, connecting this plant deeply to the cycles of life and death. Others along the Atlantic coast called it the shad bush, because its bloom coincided with the annual run of shadfish up the coastal rivers. For settlers and indigenous tribes alike, the white flowers were a biological calendar, a signal that the starvation of winter was over and the food was returning to the waters. So if this fruit was the fuel of the fur trade and the backbone of indigenous survival, how did it vanish from our tables? For centuries, the Juneberry was economically tied to the American bison. The berry was the essential preservative for pemmican. As long as the bison roamed and the fur trade thrived, the Juneberry was as valuable as gold. But when the great herds were hunted to near extinction in the late 19th century, the utility of the Juneberry plummeted. The pemmican economy collapsed, and it was replaced by the wheat economy. When settlers arrived with their steel plows, they did not see the Juneberry bushes as a food source. They saw them as brush, standing in the way of progress. Millions of acres of native fruit-bearing shrubs were ripped from the earth to make room for clean, straight rows of European wheat and corn. Simultaneously, a cultural shift occurred. Settlers brought the tastes of the old world. They planted apple orchards, pear trees, and grapevines, crops they recognized from Europe. The native Juneberry, despite being better adapted to the harsh American climate, was branded as wild food or poor man's fruit. It was something people gathered only if their imported crops failed. We culturally forgot how to value the abundance that was already here, preferring instead to struggle with crops that did not belong. In the modern era, this historical erasure was sealed by the cold chain of the 20th century. Even as people began to search for superfoods again, the Juneberry faced a final hurdle: the modern grocery store. The supply chain is built on durability, not flavor. A ripe Juneberry has thin skin and is incredibly juicy. While that makes for a superior eating experience, it is a nightmare for shipping. It cannot survive a 500-mile ride in a refrigerated semi-truck without turning into jam. By contrast, the blueberry was selectively bred in the early 20th century to develop a thicker, waxy skin that could withstand the brutality of the road. Commercial blueberries have also been bred to ripen all at once, allowing efficient machine harvesting. Juneberries retain their wild nature. They ripen unevenly, with green, red, and purple fruit often appearing on the same branch at the same time. That requires expensive handpicking, a cost modern industrial agriculture refuses to bear. This failure of industry is the home gardener's greatest opportunity. If you want to find these in the wild, you need to know what you are looking for. The Juneberry looks very similar to a blueberry, but it grows on a tree or a large bush, not a low shrub. The key identifier is the crown on the bottom of the berry. It looks like a miniature apple or a tiny pomegranate. There are no highly toxic lookalikes that mimic the berry exactly, but novices often confuse it with buckthorn, Rhamnus cathartica. Buckthorn berries are glossy and round, and they lack the bottom crown. Juneberries are matte, often with a waxy bloom, and have the crown. Buckthorn leaves have curved veins that run parallel to the leaf edge. Juneberry leaves have distinct teeth or serrations, usually only on the top half of the leaf. A smashed Juneberry reveals soft, almond-scented seeds. A smashed buckthorn berry is slimy and gross. These trees are often planted in bank parking lots and corporate centers, but be very careful. These are high traffic zones. The soil may be contaminated with road salt and heavy metals. And landscaping crews often spray these trees with pesticides and herbicides to control weeds. The best way to get Juneberries is to plant them. They are incredibly hardy, thriving in USDA zones 2 through 9. This means they can survive winters of -40 degrees in North Dakota and still produce fruit in the humid summers of Virginia. Unlike the blueberry, which demands highly acidic soil from pH 4.5 to 5.5, the Juneberry is adaptable. It thrives in standard, pH-neutral garden soil, pH 6.0 to 7.0. It tolerates clay. It handles drought once established. It is a plant-it-and-forget-it crop. You should buy certified nursery stock or named cultivars. For a tree-like shape of 15 to 25 feet, look for Autumn Brilliance or Princess Diana. For fruit production on a bush 6 to 10 feet tall, look for Regent, Thiessen, or Smoky. These have been bred for larger, sweeter fruit that rivals the best blueberries in size. You can find these at reputable nurseries like Stark Bros, One Green World, or your local garden center in the ornamental trees section. Just check the tag for the botanical name Amelanchier. The Juneberry challenges us to look at our environment differently. It asks a simple question. Why do we plant ornamental pear trees that smell bad and produce nothing? When we could plant a native species that feeds the local ecosystem, connects us to American history, and provides gallons of fruit for our families? We have normalized the idea that food comes from a clamshell package, while ignoring the abundance dripping from the branches of the trees in our own towns. It is time to stop landscaping with decorations and start landscaping with dinner. If you are ready to turn your yard into a legacy of flavor, hit that subscribe button for Ancestral Yields. We are planting the future, one forgotten fruit at a time. See you in the garden.